I finally sold the steam cleaning business. Nearly 2 years after I bought the thing, and after accruing 6 figures of losses, well into the 6 figures, I have finally gotten rid of the business. Well, I've mostly gotten rid of it. I'm technically seller financing it, so I'll be accruing some of my investment back over the next few years. It's been really not a fun journey at all. I've lost a ton of money on this thing, a lot of time and energy. Not as much time and energy directly on the business, which is probably part of the reason it has lost so much money, but it was a huge sink on my finances and really just on everything. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't upset about how this all unfolded, but I am pretty happy to at least have this chapter mostly closed as long as we get paid back over time. Because at the very least, I won't have to fund ongoing losses. In the words of director Krennic,
"The breaches have been filled."
As I alluded to in the last episode of this series, I'll do a more detailed breakdown on all the things that went wrong here and some of the key lessons that I learned in this whole adventure that ended up being very expensive and not fun by any means. But for now, some of the major takeaways and some of the things just for me to watch out for in the future, and some of the things that have actually been quite helpful, mainly have been on the hiring front. I bought this business assuming it would be a pretty simple, semi-turnkey, you put an operator in place, they run the thing, and it makes a little bit of money, and we're all good. That was my impression going into it. Well, business is a lot harder than that. You need to not only know how to find that operator, but you also need to know how to make sure that operator is doing a good job. And you need to make sure that when the going gets tough, you have the ability to get in there and actually get your hands dirty and do this and try and get things on the right ship. I wasn't willing to do that, and in some cases I wasn't able to do that simply because I had other obligations as well. I bought this thing while I was in Big Law. I didn't have time to go and operate this thing on the side, so I thought I could hire someone else to do that. But I wasn't very good at hiring, and I also didn't really know what went into a steam cleaning business other than, hey, you have equipment, you buy the equipment, and then you get things done. But I didn't really know how to operate the equipment. I didn't know how to repair the equipment. I definitely wasn't passionate about it. Not that that's a prerequisite for any business, but it would be helpful when the going gets tough to actually like the thing you're doing. So all those things really cut against it. But if there's one thing I got better at, it would be identifying talent. And sort of an overarching lesson on top of all this would be focusing on opportunities. And yes, hindsight is 20/20. And even back at the time that I invested in it, it might have been quite obvious that, hey, this isn't really something that you're into or that you're an expert in. Are you sure you want to dive into that? And that's totally a fair thing to say. Even without the benefit of hindsight, that was a fair critique. And it definitely came back to bite me pretty hard. And there are plenty of other lessons as well, which I'll get into in a future video. But I think when it comes to getting better at hiring and also just taking my medicine and needing to focus more closely on the things that I'm good at, those two things should end up being pretty valuable in the long run, even if I could have learned that some other way. But I guess you could say it's better to learn that earlier rather than later. I'm happy to at least recoup something out of the business and not have to fund ongoing losses for the foreseeable future. So that's nice. And I can focus all of my remaining time that I was spending on that business, which wasn't very much, but it was something, and it's mental energy at the end of the day that's quite precious right now. I can spend all of that on the law firm and trying to get that to work and grow from where we're at, since that is definitely a much greater opportunity for me, given my skill set and also just given where it's at right now. So farewell, steam cleaning business. You took a huge amount of my savings, and I very much deserved it. Now back to the law firm. We have a huge development for this upcoming month. We're hiring a managing attorney, which should be a major turning point for the firm, really for better or for worse. I'm thinking it's going to be for the better, but if this ends up working, it's going to allow me to get out of managing most of the caseload sooner rather than later so that I can double down on the sales and marketing side of things and making that a lot better and more effective overall. And it should also make our actual case management a lot better too, because we'll have someone who is focused on just that rather than me, who's focused in a bunch of different directions right now because I have to manage the whole firm. So if I can take one of my 3 full-time jobs away, the 3 being sales and marketing, case management, and then actually managing the team. If I can remove one of those jobs, I can focus on the remaining 2 a lot more, and that should help a lot just for firm efficiency and effectiveness. And I'm really excited for that to happen because really for the last couple of months, we've been treading water more or less, just waiting for this to actually start to where we get the managing attorney in there, we get things going on that side, we get the managing attorney fully acclimated, and then we'll be off to the races. I'm sure we'll have hiccups along the way, but this should be a major net positive for the firm if it goes even a little bit right. So we're trying to put ourselves in a position where that can happen. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into last month's net worth numbers. As a reminder, last month our net worth was around $75,000. As always, let's start with the good stuff, the assets. The biggest change here is that I liquidated the majority of my remaining Roth IRA. I hated to do it, but given the situation with what we're trying to do with the steam cleaning business, selling that and trying to pay off any remaining expenses there other than our credit card balance that we're currently holding on it, just getting things cleaned up, also moving some money into the law firm side of things so that we had some liquidity there just while we were waiting on some collections. So making sure that we're just shored up in every direction as much as we can, especially while we wait for this managing attorney to start. So I ended up doing that just to make sure that we'd be okay while we kind of reorient now that the steam cleaning business shouldn't have to keep sustaining a bunch of losses in the future. And to the steam cleaning business side of things, this is basically my remaining equity. So like I mentioned before, I'm being paid over time for the business. So this is sort of my net equity, that being the actual balance owed to me minus the balances that I owe on the credit card, for example, and a couple lingering expenses. So call it around $29,000 in equity. Not bad for a total investment of well over $300,000 between business losses and the actual purchase price. Something losses are tuition. Meanwhile, I ticked up the very vague equity balance of Duffley Law, mainly to account for the extra cash we put into it. But again, this is very much a subjective measurement of the value of the law firm. You could say it's much more, you could say it's much less. I'm not really looking to sell it anytime soon. There's retainers baked in here. There's whatever you value the revenue stream at. We are on track for 7 figures in revenue this year, so that's pretty cool. And we're getting increasingly focused on the practice areas that we're pursuing at the law firm, which should be a major boost, not only to our efficiency, but also just how effective we can be for clients. We can also start to offer more flat fees for things, which tends to make it easier to sell and also easier to collect. So it's all great when we can get that streamlined a lot more. And we're moving in the right direction there, and that's good to see. And I think the managing attorney coming on will also play a major role in moving that forward more quickly. Otherwise, there wasn't a whole lot to change on the asset side of things, so that leaves us with $1.187 million in assets. And now on to liabilities. Just a couple of major things to point out. One is my credit card balance being significantly higher, and that's because I was floating some expenses that are going to be paid down pretty quickly here, so that balance looks a little bit higher than it probably should. And then also we ended up re-rolling one of the personal loans. So that is the personal loan 4 down here. We re-rolled that, so we actually basically restarted the loan for no additional fee, got all of our principal back, and then I used that principal to throw it right back at the HELOC. So basically the balance that went up on that loan ended up being used to pay down the balance on another loan, and they're around the same interest rate right now, so it's sort of like a neutral move. But what I plan to do with the HELOC funds, because it's a revolving loan, once I feel a little bit more comfortable with where we're at cash flow wise, I'll take that balance and throw it at whatever our highest interest debt is, or at least at higher interest debt, probably credit card debt somewhere. And then that'll sort of be like a miniature refinance for that portion of the loan. So ended up doing that, so you'll see the balance increase there and then decrease over on the HELOC side. And if we look at the debt paydown chart, you'll see that basically happening where we have the personal loan going up in balance while the HELOC was going down in balance by around the same amount. So in total on net, we ended up paying down around $2,800 in debt last month. And that brings our cumulative pay down to negative $34,000 or almost $35,000. And that's negative pay down, so that would be a positive increase in our debt balances over the year. So you hate to see that, but at least we haven't let things get out of control there like they might have been earlier in the year when the cash flow situation was significantly worse. And we'll see if November, December can lead to some more significant pay down to try and bring us back to a positive net pay down on the year, but we'll see what happens. But in total, that leaves us with around $1.12 million in liabilities, which means our net worth has decreased to $65,500, which is a decrease of over $9,000. Our debt ratio has increased to almost 94.5%, and our passive income remains at around $800 per month. So not a good month net worth wise, but milestone wise, pretty positive all things considered, since we finally closed off the ongoing business losses from the steam cleaning business, and I can focus all of my remaining time and attention on the law firm, and we have that managing attorney coming pretty soon, so I'm looking forward to seeing how November and December go. This year's definitely been a financial adventure, and a very painful one at that. I've learned a ton just in how to run a business, how to hire people, how to grow a business at that. It's very difficult to do all those things, And in some ways, I've definitely pushed way too hard in some areas, and I'm trying to scale some of those back. At the same time, I've gotten better at certain things. I'm trying to scale some of those up. So trying to figure out what I'm really good at and what I can focus on, and just trying to focus my attention as much as possible on fewer things. And that's a theme you've seen throughout the last year and a half. I've been trying to sell off things, focus my time and energy on fewer things, mainly the law firm. And also now within the law firm, we're really trying to focus on what we're doing there. Less practice areas, trying to focus on getting the processes down just for a few things at a time, get those nice and up and running and in a good spot, get really good at those things, and then we can turn the dial up there. Now that we kind of know what we want to do, 2024, I'd say, was the year of trying to figure out what we want to do. 2025 will be the year of optimizing that now that we do know what we want to do. It was less than 1 year ago that I hired my first employee for the law firm, and we're up to 11 people now, soon to be 12, so that was a lot of growth to absorb. A lot of that was towards the beginning of the year, which was definitely too fast at the time, and you could definitely make an argument that we should have done a lot of things differently. But now that we're here, we definitely have learned a lot of lessons in that time. We have a lot more clarity in what we want to do going forward. And I feel a lot more confident heading into the year now that we've learned what we have learned in this very rapid fire, intense year. There's a ton of hard work ahead, but I do have the benefit of some additional knowledge heading into the next year. Thank you all for your continued support, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Until next time.